is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to look at Samsung's latest Android tablet. This is the Samsung Galaxy Tab 3 10.1. Yeah, they're sticking with that naming convention. It gets a little confusing by the time you add the tablet size on. Anyway, the Tab 3 is available in 10.1, 8, and 7-inch sizes. We're going to look at the 10.1 inch now. So this is the latest in the Samsung Galaxy Tab Android tablet line, introduced in July of 2013. This is the Samsung Galaxy Tab 3 10.1, meaning it's a 10.1 inch model. It'll also be available in 8-inch and 7-inch models, and each is different. They use different display technologies, although they all look pretty much equally quite nice. Not stellar in terms of the resolution, but nice quality displays, and they have different CPUs. This guy is interesting. It has an Intel Atom Clover Trail CPU clocked at 1.6 gigahertz as a dual-core CPU. Now, we've seen that a lot in Windows 8 tablets, but you don't see it appear too often with Android tablets. In the old days, some of the lesser known brands would have dual boot products that would boot in Android and Windows, and they would go with Intel, but not so common now. So it's interesting to see it here anyway, but much as the Intel Atom Clover Trail is a little bit slow to run Windows 8 because that's a much more demanding operating system that's meant for more powerful CPUs, it holds up well here. It's not the fastest processor on the block, interestingly enough, among processors that are available on Android smartphones and tablets, but it does a decent job. You get a gig of RAM inside and 16 gigs of storage for $399. That's the same price as the Nexus 10, which is a pretty darn powerful tablet with a much higher resolution display, so interesting there. Samsung also makes the Nexus 10, by the way, but you do get a couple of creature comforts here and that familiarity of Samsung's TouchWiz software. For those of you who have Samsung Galaxy phones or you have previous Galaxy tablets and you really like the software and the approach to things, that can be a strong selling point, the whole software package that you get on here. If we take a look around the tablet, you can see that we have what's called brown with gold accents. Instead of being silver, this has kind of a warm tone to it. It's also available in the usual Samsung glossy white, but they added the brown recently to their lineup for those who are just not so into the white. Very shiny. Fingerprints, it loves them. It does indeed. Now, in kind of natural lighting here, it doesn't look super brown, but if you take it into a brightly lit area, it really starts to show the brown, and the highlights get very warm on it. So it's kind of an interesting thing. And you can see how thin it is. Samsung is good at making things thin. Even though there's a 6,800 milliamp battery in here, which is a pretty adequate battery, certainly for a tablet. Super thin, 0.31 inches, making it a little bit thinner than the Nexus 10 tablet, which is 0.36 inches thick. So thin, light, easy to carry, 1 pound, 2 ounces, so call that about 1.15 pounds, so also a very light tablet. Here's where you're going to be bummed. With the Samsung Galaxy Tab 2, they put the speakers surrounding the display aiming at you. They're over here. Awesome idea, right? Well, it's gone. Funny that. So you do have stereo speakers with good separation and pretty good quality. And they're on the side. That's a stereo speaker there. It's your other stereo speaker over here. It's your headphone jack right there on the corner, up top. And here we have our power button, our volume controls, micro SD card slot that is compatible with SDXC cards, and that's our consumer IR remote, so that works to control your TV and your AV gear. Comes with both Peel and Watch On, which they did with the Samsung Galaxy Note 8.0, giving you both those applications so you have a choice. Peel is third-party application, Watch On is Samsung's own. With Peel, you can add more than just your TV and DVR. With Samsung's Watch On, you can just control the TV and the DVR. On the bottom here, again, something we saw on the Note 8.0, they've switched to micro USB instead of the proprietary 30-pin port that they used for accessories. The good news about this is you can use your Samsung Galaxy S4 charger on this. Standard 2-amp, 5-volt USB charger will work with this. And it has USB host, so if you have a micro USB on-the-go cable, it will work, and we'll demo that for you. On the front here, we have our hardware home button and our capacitive backlit menu and back buttons. The usual Android experience, multi-page home screen. Samsung's TouchWiz UI is here on top of Android 4.2.2, so you got the latest, greatest Android operating system on here. And it has all the usual Samsung water sound effects, and you can disable those if they start to bug you. The display is TFT. It's colorful. It has very wide viewing angles. Samsung has not said yet if this is a PLS display. We're trying to find that out for our full written review. But anyway, good viewing angles. You can see other than glare, it really is viewable even at really bizarre angles like this where you probably wouldn't be using the tablet. Resolution is 1280 by 800. That's pretty run-of-the-mill these days. A couple of years ago, that was the standard for a 10.1-inch Android tablet. Now we're not so impressed, since full HD tablets have been out with 1920 by 1080 or 1920 by 1200 displays. And of course, there's the Nexus 10 with its 2550 by 1600 pixel display, again at the same price point. And we'll do a smackdown between those two in case you're having trouble making up your mind. So high resolution is not, yes, text, if you have really good eyes, you're going to see the text is not really as smooth as it could be. And when we show you some games like Real Racing 3, the cars are going to look a little bit jaggy because of that. But it's not a horrid display by any means. It's perfectly adequate and certainly way better than a lot of those no-name tablets you might see at the store. And Samsung's also counting on you buying this because Samsung is a familiar brand name. You probably trust them, and you might even have one of their phones. Again, they're not taking a whole lot of chances here. There's no GWiz wow feature. There's nothing we haven't seen before on a Samsung tablet particularly. We have our usual drawer of many apps, Google apps, and a whole lot of Samsung stuff here. We have music players up the wazoo. We have Google Play Music, which is the standard Google Music player. We have Samsung's own music player. We have their Music Hub. If you want to buy content from them, they have their Video Hub and their Music Hub. And for some of these Samsung applications, like Game Hub over here, where you can actually download a couple of games for free, you're going to have to register and create a Samsung account if you haven't done so already with a previous Samsung product. Likewise with Samsung Watch On, if you've already set up your stuff on another Samsung device to control your TV and what program listings you like, you can sign into your Samsung account and do that there. You can see we have S Voice over here. That's a mixed bag. Honestly, Google's voice control generally works better than Samsung's S Voice, but it's here. We have a screensaver. You can kind of turn it into a photo frame. Samsung's Memo, less useful here because you're going to be using the on-screen keyboard instead of a digital pen, but it exists here as well. Nice thing is they include a full version of Polaris Office. That's a good value added there over some budget tablets, certainly. And this is the full version. We have templates over here, and if I want to create a new document, it's as simple as choosing one right there. And now I've just created a new spreadsheet. So for those of you who need mobile Office on the go, it's not going to have all the features of MS Office. Polaris Office is pretty capable, but it doesn't have every single feature. But it'll get the job done, for basics at least. As I mentioned, Samsung's TouchWiz UI is here. They like to customize the icons a little bit, and things like here, drop down, easy control of all sorts of stuff. Your wireless radios, the GPS, yes, it has a GPS built in. Sound, your screen rotation, Bluetooth, blocking mode, which makes a lot more sense on a phone than it does on a tablet. But that silences that you can set, so you don't want to have it going beeping and whirring and letting you know about new email at 2 a.m. You can tell it to not bug you from midnight to 7 a.m. Power saving mode, we've got driving mode. I'm not sure how many people are going to be using this as an on-the-go driving GPS device, to be honest, given the fact that it's Wi-Fi only. I'm sure eventually we'll see carrier versions. That's always happened with Samsung tablets. Then it might make more sense. But you could use your phone as a mobile hotspot for this, or use a MiFi so you could have maps on the go, or you could pre-download your map data as well. We have Smart Stay. It uses the front camera right here, so it keeps an eye on you, and it knows if you're looking at the display and it won't turn it off. I find that feature pretty darn useful. Turn sync on and off, and we have airplane mode. Not as complex an array of settings that we saw on the Samsung Galaxy S4 smartphone here. A little bit more limited, and you'll notice that there's no multi-window mode on this guy, like we saw on the Samsung phones and on the Note line. So you don't have that little pull-out over here that's going to give you a little strip of applications. Probably, I think the CPU is strong enough to handle that feature. I probably just want to give you reasons to spend more money on the more expensive Note line. Samsung's customized contacts and calendar applications are here. S Planner, most notably the one that has the skeuomorphistic, looks sort of like a printed kind of calendar instead. I like it pretty well myself. If you're fond of Samsung features, you'll probably like that. A couple of preloaded widgets here. We got the weather, we have Yahoo News, and you can see we have a task manager up here for a widget, various calendar widgets. The usual Google widgets are here for things like your bookmarks, clocks, dual clocks, email. Flipboard, of course, Samsung loves Flipboard, so you got Flipboard here. Music controls, a little mini memo, that can be handy certainly, picture frames. Bookmarks, Play Store shortcuts, settings shortcuts, all sorts of stuff going on here. And you can add your own, of course, from the Google Play Store as well. In terms of synthetic benchmarks, the 1.6 gigahertz dual-core Atom does pretty well. Quadrant was a score of 5,048. You compare that to something like the Nexus 10 that scored 49.59, so it's actually a little bit better. Not as good as the Sony Tablet Xperia Z though, which was 74.50 in comparison, and that one has a Qualcomm Snapdragon CPU inside for a bit better performance. Antutu, 21,135. That's a very strong showing. Graphics scores are not quite as impressive. GL Benchmark, now known as Graphics Bench, 2.7, using the Egypt 2.5 HD test, 32 frames per second and 25 frames per second off screen. For 3D Mark, the Ice Storm test, 6,421, and the demo ran at 25.9 frames per second. Compare that to the Sony Xperia Tablet Z, that demo ran at 49 frames per second versus 25.9. But it holds up pretty well versus the Nexus 10, which scored 25.5 frames on the demo. For our Sun Spider score, we got 1171, not bad, pretty decent there. So overall, pretty good benchmarks, the graphics benchmarks being maybe not as impressive as Qualcomm Snapdragon late CPUs, but pretty darn good actually. Now, for those of you who want to use the USB host feature, we have just a generic USB host cable right here, no name brand, works just fine, meant for smartphones and Android tablets. 32 gig flash drive. We're going to plug it into the micro USB port at the bottom, and Samsung's built-in file manager should open up and it should say, woohoo, you've inserted a flash drive. And there it is, USB device connected. It's opening up the file manager. Our USB drive listed there. And there's all of our stuff. So say I want to play a song off of here. Let's see if I can pick one out. And we'll use Samsung's music player. We'll advance it forward a little bit. And stereo speakers are not bad at all. You can see we're almost at max volume. It's not a very loud track, but not bad sounding. And say we want to open up a picture. And there it is. Easy as anything. So USB host works just fine on this with flash drives. Not really enough power to drive most spinning hard drives that are self-powered. That means they don't plug into the wall for electricity, but great for flash drives. Also works for game controllers, keyboards, mice, but keyboards, certainly they could be interesting. I think most people are going to be using a Bluetooth one. Mice, a little redundant with the touchscreen here, but game controllers, always awesome. We're going to try that now. So now we're going to try out Dead Trigger because number one, it's free. Number two, it supports game controllers, and you can see all this cord right here in our USB host adapter. This is a Logitech PlayStation style controller, and we tried the Xbox wired controller for PCs, and that didn't work. Funny, we plugged it in, and it knew that it was plugged in, it was just fine. When we plugged in the Logitech one, it said high-powered device that requires external power, yet this one works. So, be that as it may. At least we know some game controllers work. Of course, you can use Bluetooth ones like the GameStop Bluetooth controller for Android tablets and phones too. And Dead Trigger is a little bit slow to load on this for some reason. It's a little strange. And so here I am moving my little friend up and down here. And shooting. Controller works just fine. And the gameplay is fine, other than the extraordinarily long loading times for this particular game. It's pretty good. We'll check out Real Racing 3 next to see how that loads up. Alright, now we're in Real Racing 3, also that has longer than normal load times. Now, so far our storage benchmark numbers were not particularly poor on this, so it might have something to do with the Intel CPU being a little bit different. Still investigating that. But again, once the game loads, it runs fine. And that's taking longer than normal right there. frame rates are not as smooth as they could be right there. Let's see what happens once we get into the race. We do have our rear view mirrors. So far, in-game performance is holding up much better than the cutscene performance. Everything looks just fine. Of course, a little bit jaggy because the resolution is not exactly super high here relative to the display size. But it's definitely holding up well with a lot of cars in the field, and this curve often slows down a lot on a slower CPU, and it's holding up, it's playing nicely. So that's Real Racing 3 on the Samsung Galaxy Tab 3 10.1. And now we'll take a look at the web browser. It comes both with the standard WebKit web browser, which is nice because you can sideload Flash if you know how to do that. And it also comes with the Chrome web browser. And you can see we've got Samsung's customized keyboard right here. And that loads just fine. And you can see what the text looks like. Not bad, really. Not super duper sharp like it would be on a Nexus 10 or an iPad with Retina display, but good enough. Pinch zooming speeds are fast. Double tapping works just fine. Let's test out a streaming video and see. We're going to watch our HTC One Google Play Edition video, which is a YouTube-based video. And that will play using the HTML5 version of the file by default, unless you sideload Flash. For Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to look at the latest version of the HTC One. This is the HTC One Google Play Edition, and as you might handles it just fine, full screen, good quality, good lip sync. That's definitely a go. Tablet has a 1.3 megapixel front camera, meant mostly for video chat, and a 3.2 megapixel rear camera. That's right, only 3.2 megapixels, and believe me, it is thoroughly mediocre. Has some nice software settings. Of course, not everything you're going to see in the Galaxy S4 smartphone or even the Note, but the camera itself, the quality is, it can record 720p video as well. So you can see what we got settings over here. You can adjust your EV. We've got some color modes, timer on and off. We have single shot panorama, buddy photo share, smile shot. And here we have more settings for your shooting mode, single shot, for example, what effects, what scene mode you want, exposure values. So a lot of nice powerful stuff there, but nothing that's really going to help a 3.2 megapixel camera take really fantastic shots. Does not have the touch focus feature here, as far as I can see, but it takes a fast shot. How Samsung does it, I'll never guessed. 6,800 milliamps of battery inside, something this thin and this light, just a little bit over a pound. That's a lot of battery power, and the Intel Atom CPU is very power frugal. That's something we've seen even on Windows 8 tablets, and those are generally speaking more demanding of the processor and the GPU inside. And so far our tablet has run 9 to 10 hours on a charge of actual use time on with the screen turned on. That's in a mix of working with Polaris Office, checking our email, and visiting a lot of web pages, and watching some streaming video on YouTube. So pretty good showing there for battery life. So all in all, there's some nice creature comforts here. The IR remote, Samsung's own customized software. People who like Samsung are going to adore that display. Pretty good viewing angles on here. Tough competition it faces, though, considering that it doesn't have any stellar standout features. No really fast CPU, no great camera, nothing novel, no super high-res display. So I would say shop around and consider your options. The Nexus 10. We still have the Asus Transformer TF300 and the TF700 with a full HD display, Sony Xperia Z tablet. Lots to choose from. So that's a Samsung Galaxy Tab 3 10.1. It's available now for $399 for the 16 gig Wi-Fi model. And like I said, Samsung's not trying to do big things here exactly with their tab line right now. I think they're leaving that to the Galaxy Note. But for the price, it's a decent tablet, but it's worth looking at the competition too. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to visit our website for the full review of the Samsung Galaxy Tab 3 line. And don't forget to hit that like button.